Last night, I sent a text to my husband saying, "Forget you if you can't apologize." Now he won't talk to me. Background. I've been the main cook for this family for 17 years. I'm 40 years old. We have 5 kids. He is nearly 50 years old, and he rarely cooks, but he is capable of cooking. 7 days ago, I had a total hip replacement planned. I'm on crutches and a lot of pain medication. He is my caregiver. Yesterday at 7 p.m, he said he would start cooking dinner. I was concerned and starving, and I asked him what dinner was. He said he was defrosting frozen chicken breast for a HelloFresh meal. To set the scene, the lunch he served was half a small plate of broccoli and sweet potato, no protein. Breakfast was a banana and a cuppa. I had to ask for 1 slice of toast. So by 7 p.m, I was starving, helpless, and in pain. When he said frozen chicken, I yelled, "I know there's food in the fridge, please just bring something." Plan B was microwave lasagna leftovers, which a neighbor delivered the day before, which he cooked, i.e. threw in the oven. Lacking protein, I started yelling again. "I can't believe you can't find something proper, 17 years, and I can't even trust you to feed me?" Edit. Lasagna is Woolworth's brand basic lasagna. Not homemade. Neighbor was very kind to deliver it, but not high in protein. He got mad saying, "Don't you want food? I am offering chicken or lasagna with salad. What more do you want? How are you mad? I am offering you a choice." I felt betrayed, disappointed, and unloved. But I needed to eat, so I told him lasagna. He served it, I eat, and I go to bed. After 30 minutes, I'm still mad, so I texted him. I didn't think I would have to spell it out. Feeding a person is not difficult. Your plan of defrosting frozen chicken at 7 p.m. is ridiculous. Please have a nutritious meal for me tomorrow. The trust I had for you has been going for a while now. But this is a huge low. And for you to throw a fit and try to make me look like the crazy one, forget you if you can't apologize. Edit. Yes, I realize how awful this was. But I'm mad. And I wanted real feedback, so being honest. I usually don't speak like this. But yes, the resentment is growing for more reasons. This is just an example. He says nothing and completely ignores the text message. This morning, he goes to work as planned. My 16-year-old daughter is caring for me during the day. She feeds me well. He comes home at 6 p.m. Still no apology. He makes the chicken dinner tonight. He defrosted it last night, brings it to me, and then he leaves silently. He parks himself in front of the TV. I eat and finish, but I cannot take care of the dirty plate, so it's sitting beside me on the bed. 10 minutes after I eat, I use crutches to hobble to get my own medication, and he ignored me while I struggled to get a glass of ice water and take the meds. It's an obvious struggle, and he is choosing to ignore me. I manage to take the meds, and as I walk by him to go to bed, he says nothing. He just now crawled into bed and is near asleep. He hasn't said anything to me yet. No "how are you?" No apology, no consideration. Silence. Does he owe me an apology? Or am I the idiot? Edit for clarification. I'm not sitting around in bed. I'm walking as much as possible, following doctor and PT directions. It's my 2nd hip replacement. First one was in 2018, early onset osteoarthritis. I can't cook yet though, and he said he would. Update, I apologized at length. He said, "Okay," then pretended like it never happened. We spoke briefly about the weather, and he hasn't attended to me since. Thankfully, my daughter is bringing meals, and I am now able to walk a lot more, so I'll be able to self-care. I know now what to expect from him, not much. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. The trust I had for you has been going on for a while now, so I feel like you're burying the lead here a little bit. He's obviously not doing a great job of being a caregiver, but the anger in your text was clearly influenced by other stuff too. Still, not the idiot. He needs to do better. Comment 2. Defrosting chicken at 7 p.m. to just begin making dinner? Nope, not the idiot. Like many others have said, weaponized incompetence. If he's doing this now, after surgery, what would life be like if something catastrophic happened to you later in life? Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the support last time. Things have been, well, let's just say it's been a ride. So, after I sent that text to my husband, things went radio silent. I mean, not a word from him. I was still on crutches, still needing help, and he was acting like I didn't exist. My daughter, bless her heart, stepped up big time. She's been my rock, making sure I'm fed and taking care of me while I recover. But here's where it gets crazy. A few days after the whole chicken and lasagna debacle, I noticed my husband was on his phone a lot. Like, more than usual. And he was being super secretive about it, angling the screen away from me whenever I was nearby. It was weird, but I was too wrapped up in my own pain and frustration to really dig into it. Then, one night, I heard him talking in the garage. Our house isn't that big, so it's not hard to hear someone if they're trying to be quiet. He was saying things like, I know, but what can I do? And she's never going to forgive me. I couldn't make out the whole conversation, but it was enough to get my mind racing. Who was he talking to? What was he talking about? The next morning, I confronted him. I asked him straight up who he was talking to and why he was being so secretive. He brushed it off, said it was just work stuff, but I could tell he was lying. There was something in his eyes, a kind of panic I hadn't seen before. Days went by, and the tension in the house was thick. My daughter was still helping me out, but she was starting to ask questions. What's going on with you and Dad? She'd say. I didn't have good answers for her. Then, one day, my husband left his phone on the kitchen counter while he was in the shower. I know it was wrong, but I couldn't help myself. I had to know what was going on. I picked up his phone, and that's when I saw the messages. He'd been talking to someone named Jen. The texts were not good. They were talking about meeting up, about how he felt trapped, how he needed someone to talk to. My heart sank. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. All this time, while I was struggling, he was confiding in someone else? Possibly more? I put the phone back and didn't say a word. I didn't know what to do. I was hurt, angry, and felt so betrayed. But I also needed him. I was still recovering, still not able to take care of myself fully. That night, he came home with flowers and a card. It was the first time he'd acknowledged me in days. The card was an apology for not being there for me, for not being a better husband. But it didn't mention Jen. It didn't mention the texts. I accepted the flowers, but I didn't say anything about the texts. I didn't confront him. I just couldn't. Instead, I focused on getting better, on walking more, on being less dependent on him. Now, it's been 2 weeks since my last update. I'm walking a lot more, and my daughter is still helping me out. My husband and I, we're talking, but it's like we're walking on eggshells around each other. He's trying to be more attentive, but there's this huge elephant in the room that we're both ignoring. I don't know what's going to happen with us. I don't know if I can ever trust him again. But for now, I'm just focusing on my recovery and taking it one day at a time. Thanks for listening. Now for the comments. Comment 1. Oh honey, your man's acting shadier than a tree on a sunny day. You deserve the truth, straight up. While you're healing, remember, you're the main character in your story, not a side quest in his. Comment 2. First off, gather evidence. Then, seek a therapist for yourself and consider couples counseling if you want to salvage things. Legal advice wouldn't hurt either. Protect yourself financially and emotionally, girl. Now for the next story. My 32-year-old female father is 20 years older than his younger brother David, 34-year-old male. Due to various factors, David spent a majority of his early years with my parents. By the time I was 10 and David was 12, he moved in. David and my dad looked nearly identical, and people always assumed that was his son. My parents always said he was their first kid, they loved him like a son, etc. I always felt a bit weird about this. David is a nice guy, but he's not my brother. I never understood why it was my parents' job to pick up the slack of my grandparents. It caused a few disagreements in my youth that always boiled down to, David has nothing, you have everything, be nice. I hated that I essentially went from an only child to a younger sister without being asked. I never looked at David as a brother, but obviously due to our small age gap, I never saw him as an uncle. To me, he's just family. We get along well. David is now married with a daughter, Aria. My parents are grandma and grandpa to her. It does make me feel some sort of way that they've christened her as their first grandbaby. But I've accepted I can't control how they feel and relate themselves to David. So long as when my husband and I have kids, they're the same to them, and I know they will be, that's fine. The real issue is that David, his wife, and my parents have tried making me Aunt Tabitha. I don't like it. Aria isn't my niece. I tried to just refer to myself by my first name with her, but the hint wasn't going through. As Arya is too little to speak, 8 months, I plan to let it go for now. Yesterday, we were at my parents' for Christmas. Arya was being fussed over, as usual. When it came time for David and his wife to help her unwrap the gift my husband and I got her, David told Arya, "This is from Auntie Tabitha and Uncle Mike." Without thinking, I said, "Just Tabitha and Mike." David gave me an odd look but went back to unwrapping. Later on, privately, David asked if I was okay. I said yes. Why? He said I got weird during gifts. I said not weird, just factual. I'm not Arya's aunt. He was still confused. I said I'm not his sister. This seemed to hurt his feelings, but he said okay, apologized, and said he'd never say it again. My mom pulled me aside later and said I was cruel to David. She said he considered me his sister. I simply said I'm not, and I'm not that baby's aunt. My mom gave me a disgusted look. She and my dad barely spoke to me the rest of the night, though David and his wife were polite. My husband feels there were better ways of going about it. Am I the idiot? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You're the idiot. This dude has basically been your brother for 12 years. And the aunt label doesn't really mean anything. It's just a word that family uses sometimes to describe each other. Sure, technically you are cousins, but why sweat the details? Comment 2. In my family, though I think it's cultural, I grew up calling cousins aunt out of respect because they are much older than me. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, I wanted to give you an update on the situation with my family. It's been a bit since the Christmas incident, and let me tell you, it's been a roller coaster. After the whole Aunt Tabitha thing blew up, things were super awkward. My parents were giving me the cold shoulder, and David and his wife were polite but distant. I felt like I was walking on eggshells every time I was around them. But then, something happened that I didn't expect. A couple of weeks ago, my husband and I got some surprising news. We're expecting. We were over the moon, but I was also nervous about telling my family. Given the tension, I wasn't sure how they'd react. We decided to wait until our first ultrasound to share the news. Meanwhile, David's birthday was coming up, and my parents were throwing him a small party. I knew I had to go, but I was dreading it. The day of the party, I was a bundle of nerves. When we got there, I could tell David was trying to make an effort. He came up to me, and we had our first real conversation since Christmas. He told me he'd been doing some thinking, and he realized that he'd never considered how I felt about the whole situation. He said he was sorry for assuming I was okay with being called his sister and Arya's aunt. I was taken aback. I hadn't expected an apology, and it was clear he was sincere. The party went on, and it was actually nice. My parents were still a bit standoffish, but it was better than I thought it would be. Then, as we were cutting the cake, my mom suddenly got emotional. She started talking about family and how important it is to stick together. It was so unlike her to be so open, and I could tell something was up. A few days later, my parents asked to meet with me and my husband. We sat down, and they told us they'd been doing some soul-searching. They apologized for not considering my feelings and for pressuring me into a role I wasn't comfortable with. They said they wanted to make things right. It was a lot to take in, and I was cautious, but I could see they were trying. So, I decided it was time to share our news. I told them about the pregnancy, and their reaction was priceless. They were ecstatic. My mom cried. My dad hugged us both. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were a real family again. Since then, things have been getting better. My parents have been more respectful of my boundaries, and David and I have been rebuilding our relationship. He's even started referring to me by my first name around Arya, which means a lot. As for Arya, she's growing so fast. She's started to babble, and it's the cutest thing. I've been spending more time with her, and I've got to admit, she's stolen a little piece of my heart. I'm not her aunt, but I'm something special to her, and that's enough for me. My husband has been my rock through all of this. He's been so supportive and understanding, and I don't know what I'd do without him. We're both looking forward to becoming parents and seeing our child grow up with cousins and a family that, despite everything, loves each other. So, that's where we are now. It's not perfect, but it's real, and it's ours. I'm learning that family isn't just about labels. It's about the love and effort you put into your relationships, and I'm hopeful for the future. Thanks for all the support and advice you guys gave me. It really helped me navigate through this whole mess. Now, for the comments. Comment 1. Oh honey, I'm cackling at the thought of that awkward family dance you all did before the baby news dropped. It's like everyone was stepping on each other's toes. But seriously, holding off on the baby news until the ultrasound was a smooth move. Gives you time to breathe and them time to get their act together. Cheers to future diaper changes and less family drama. Comment 2. Been there with the whole family not getting it saga. My brother and I didn't talk for months after a blowout at Thanksgiving. It wasn't until he needed help moving that we hashed it out. Glad to hear your family is turning a corner, and congrats on the baby. Now for the next story. I, 33-year-old female, am a single mother to a 6-year-old girl. I've raised my daughter all on my own. She was born from a one-night stand with a now former friend, 37-year-old male. We never got together, and he refused to be involved in my pregnancy or my daughter's first 4 years of life. I was emotionally stressed because it's a big change, but I never asked for child support or forced him to be involved. I have enough income to send my daughter to private school. I'm perfectly fine on my own. The issue started when he reappeared from wherever he went and decided he wanted visitation. He's not on my daughter's birth certificate. The father is listed as unknown. He wanted to have that amended. I said no, and that if he wants, the best he'll get is to meet her on outings with myself or my daughter's godparents. He agreed, but he's been constantly pressuring to get parental rights. The court has already given him a big fat no, unless he pays 4 years of child support, which with his income goes somewhere around $230,000. He hasn't paid a cent. My daughter doesn't even call him dad or recognize him as dad. She calls him Mr. I keep it very clean. I never badmouthed him or made up stories. When she asked about her father, I used to say it was just the two of us. Even during court, the assigned CPS agent testified that my daughter had no affection or clear relationship with her biological father. Now, the main issue happened in a PTA meeting. He would say things like, "My family thinks," or "What's best for my family." I didn't agree with him, and I voiced my disagreement by saying, "My daughter has different needs, and those are a priority." He was clearly angry. After the meeting, there was a moment for teachers and parents to mingle and just talk about how the kids are doing. One of the teachers approached me to apologize, saying she didn't know my husband and I didn't like a project she was doing with the kids. I told her I had no husband, and my daughter loved the project and wants to be part of it. The teacher then told me that my former friend was going around talking like he's my husband and he represents the family. I saw red. I walked up to him and very loudly told him we needed to talk in private. In the parking lot, I told him we were not a family and that he either respects that I am the only one that can make decisions about my daughter's education, or he won't be involved. He went on about being her biological father. Then I reminded him he had not paid a cent for the pregnancy, my daughter's needs, or even the private school my daughter is in. He hasn't tried to see my daughter since, which she doesn't mind at all. I asked her, I do feel a bit bad about what I said. Am I the idiot? I wanted to add this because the PMs are driving me insane. He has the money to pay child support. He chose not to pay. He was never prohibited from being involved. He had my phone number. I sent him pictures and invited him to birthdays and other big celebrations. He never came. PSA, we are not in the US. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. You set boundaries and prioritized your daughter's well-being. It's important for him to respect your role as the primary caregiver, especially considering his absence and lack of financial support. Standing up for your daughter's needs doesn't make you bad. Comment 2. Not the idiot. If the courts have decided he does not have parental rights, then you need to contact the school security to make sure he doesn't get to be involved with your daughter. You may also consider getting a protective order. Now, for the update. So it's been 2 weeks since I last talked about the whole mess with my daughter's biological father. And let me tell you, things have gotten even more complicated. First off, he actually tried to pay some of the child support. Not the whole amount, just a fraction. But it was enough to make me think he was serious about being involved. I was cautious though, because I didn't want to get my hopes up. My daughter, she's still indifferent to him, which I guess is for the best, given everything that's happened. But here's where it gets twisted. He started showing up at my daughter's school more often, trying to be part of the parent-teacher meetings and school events. I was uncomfortable with it, but I didn't want to cause a scene. I thought maybe he was trying to make an effort, so I let it slide. Then, one day, I got a call from the school. They said my daughter had been picked up early by her father. My heart dropped. I never gave permission for that. I rushed to the school, and thankfully, my daughter was still there. It turns out he had tried to pick her up, but the school, knowing the situation, refused to let him. I was relieved, but furious at the same time. I confronted him about it, and he said it was a misunderstanding. He claimed he just wanted to take her out for ice cream. But I wasn't buying it. I told him he crossed a line, and that I didn't want him anywhere near the school unless I was there. He got mad and said I was being unreasonable and keeping his daughter from him. Things were tense after that. I noticed my daughter seemed a bit more quiet than usual. I asked her if anything was wrong, but she just shrugged and said she was fine. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was up. A few days later, I found out what it was. My daughter's godmother, who's been a huge support for us, told me she saw my former friend talking to my daughter after school. She said it looked like a pretty intense conversation. When I asked my daughter about it, she finally opened up. She said he told her that he was her real dad and that he wanted to be part of her life. She was confused because she's always just had me, and now this man was trying to tell her he was her father. I was livid. I had tried to keep things civil for my daughter's sake, but this was too much. I told him he had no right to talk to her like that without me present. He accused me of trying to poison her against him. I couldn't believe he'd say that after all the years he was absent. Now, I'm just trying to figure out what to do next. My daughter is caught in the middle of this, and I can see it's starting to affect her. She's been more withdrawn at home, and her teachers say she's not participating as much in class. And to top it all off, I've been getting messages from mutual friends saying I should give him a chance to be a father. They don't know the whole story, of course. They just see a man trying to be involved with his daughter, not the years of absence and the sudden, unsettling interest. I'm torn. Part of me wants to protect my daughter from all this drama, but another part wonders if I'm being too harsh. I mean, he is her biological father, right? But then I remember the years of silence, the lack of support, and the recent stunts he's pulled. So here I am, stuck in this mess, trying to do what's best for my daughter. I'm not sure where to go from here. It's like every time I think we've taken a step forward, something happens that sets us back again. And through all of this, I'm trying to keep a brave face for my daughter, but inside, I'm just as confused and conflicted as she probably is. Now, for the comments. Comment 1. Oh man, this takes me back. My ex started doing surprise pop-ins at my kids' daycare, and it was a mess. It's super important to have clear boundaries for everyone's sake. You're not wrong for feeling protective. Comment 2. Hey, sounds like you're in a tough spot. I'd suggest maybe setting up a proper visitation schedule. It could help give your daughter some stability and keep things civil. Hang in there. Parenting is never easy, but you're doing your best. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.